Bisha, I'm going to come to you. Bisha, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm going to come to you and ask, as an educator, Dapo mentioned some things about let's encourage people to actually go into the type of schooling that's best fit for them. And then character building as well. Where do you think is the entry point? And let me put this in context. In most of the primary schools, at least the good enough ones, we're doing something around it. Some of the secondary school, you will notice I said most for primary school and some of the secondary schools. But if the terminal point at this point is university, and the children, those children who have gone through relatively good primary and secondary schools, do not then move, for instance, abroad. The universities as is, the public universities, do they mess up the work that we have done from the lower levels? Because unfortunately, I cannot say that they add to the values that we teach at the lower levels. What can be done?
Yeah, I think that as a product of the Nigerian educational system, I would agree with what you said, that even when I went through school, I sort of felt that university education was the worst part of the entire mix. So it was like it just took away everything. It sort of, everything just fell flat by the time I went to university, and I imagine that the basic and the secondary education has also fallen flat in public school institutions, so it's only the private sector, and I've seen Mrs. Bankole talking about that as one of the attendees, that at the end of the day, it's the private sector that comes up to pick up all the slack, and the private sector is not even recognized for this or supported for this, which is rather unfortunate. So I think that we must lay the foundation early for all this character education, because unfortunately, by the time people are in their teens and above their teens, it's a different, psychologists tell us by the time the child is 5-7 years old or something like that, I'm not an expert, that the person is already quite formed, in terms of their values and their orientation and so on and so forth. So the earlier we nip it in the bud, the better. But if you don't mind, I just want to make a small commentary on something that Razak spoke about, and I agree with him 100%. This issue about curriculum, he said, let's apply the Nigerian curriculum for Christian religious studies, for example. And in the curriculum, the actual learning objective, I can never forget this, was that the children should be able to relate to the 10 commandments and identify aspects of the 10 commandments that they have violated, and come up with action plans to overcome those sins and those temptations. Then I saw the exam that was set based on that curriculum. So the curriculum says that they should think, they should evaluate, they should self-assess, and they should come up with ways to overcome the sins that are in the 10 commandments. And guess what I saw as the exam questions? What is the 6th commandment? Now, who sets that question? So the curriculum, I often tell people that, I don't know. I think the curriculum isn't bad. I think the curriculum. So the curriculum said, evaluate 10 commandments. And instead, the questions are all, what is the 6th commandment? What is the 4th commandment? How is that? So go back to Bloom's taxonomy. You are just teaching children how to remember, whereas the curriculum is actually asking you to challenge them to evaluate, to analyze, and to create at the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. So at the end of the day, I think that we have as rich a curriculum as is possible. I think that even as it is, if we implement 30% of it properly, we will be shooting out the stars,
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you. Okay. We will be taking some of our questions that have come in. I think some of them have been answered, but let's walk through it quickly. Okay, the first one, and I think, Dapo, this is for you. Rafia Yusuf asks, is character molding meant for schools to work on or the home?
Definitely both. Definitely both. I mean, it's both the home and the schools. The school is important because, for instance, now a teacher who establishes a culture of discipline, orderliness, diligence, and so on in his classroom is going to rub off on the child. It will rub off on the child. You know, it will, and the child will see those qualities and those virtues as being important, and they'll carry it going forward. But so the school is very important. You can't teach something different at home as what they're teaching them at school and expect them, you know, to get better in there and, you know, develop their character. So school, I mean, look at how many hours children spend at school a day. You know, so it's important, definitely. I mean, school is a key place to develop character, definitely. In Japan, the first few years that children spend at school is they teach them about values. They teach them about compassion. They teach them to be generous, to be kind, to be thoughtful, to be considerate. They don't start actually examining the children, like in terms of exams, until they're about 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah.
And if you meet a typical Japanese person, they are people of integrity. They're people of exquisite manners. It's because they were taught that from a very young age, and it became part of them. That was understood. Yeah.
Thank you, Dakbo. You see, the two things that you mentioned are the things that artificial intelligence cannot take away. Because we're all saying, oh, artificial intelligence is coming, it's taking away jobs. Compassion, communication skills, relationship building will never be taken away by the machines. It's still human beings who need to be able to do that. So thank you for your response. Beatrice Kemedi asks, are you satisfied with the depth of content and delivery of English as a core subject in our schools? I think she specifically mentioned Darkboy again, but I think this is more for maybe Bishe. Are you satisfied with the depth of content and delivery of English as a core subject in our schools? Bishe.
Well, I would just say that I deal with the adult remedial education in corporate training, and I must tell you that business writing is one of the areas that corporates in Nigeria, government and public institutions, and the content. I'm preparing for a business writing training right now for one of the biggest banks in Nigeria, and most of the content is to address the proper conjugation of verbs, sentence construction, use of punctuations, basic grammar, you know, that people should have figured out a long time ago. So my answer is an emphatic, we are far from where we should be. Most graduates who come into school are not functionally literate in the English language. They cannot write grammatically correct sentences, nor pronounce words properly. So we are in a deep mess when it comes. And I make no apologies. People say things like, "Oh, but English is not our first language," but English is the functional language of business and commerce and life all around the world. And indeed, let's stop kidding ourselves. English is the national language of Nigeria. So we should stop all these things about, oh, it's not our natural. It is because of the quality of people that are quality of teachers, you know. So the people who are teaching in schools today, because the quality is so low, we have dropped the bar for the quality of English also, and we absolutely shouldn't. You know.
Thank you, Bisha. I totally agree with you about the quality. Larry, I'm going to come to you as an addendum to that question. Larry, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Larry, low cost, quality, again, it begs the question. Bisha just responded. If we're still looking at step one, step two, how are we bringing up people who can actually compete? Or are we bringing up people who can actually compete beyond just ensuring that we're getting them into school? 1 minute, please.
I think I would like to, because when we talk about the issues of education, I look at it like pieces of a puzzle. There are so many moving parts that are not working. And for us to be able to ensure that happens, we need to start addressing each puzzle piece one after the other. And I can't answer all of that today, but I would like to take one puzzle piece, which is the quality of teachers, which a lot of people have talked about today, and they've asked questions around that. The first thing is we need to look at the system itself. Where do we get our teachers from? So if we look at Nigeria, you realize that when you want to enter university, when you don't have any course, they dash you a course in education. These are people that they didn't want to study education in the first place. They just throw them there and then they become teachers. Even the colleges of education, they have the lowest score, JAMB score, to enter the College of Education. About 120, you enter College of Education. These are the people that we expect to teach the next generation. If I want to take us back to Finland, which is, a lot of people have been giving examples about Finland. They use their best students to come up with the next teachers, the next type. If you understand the kind of work they do with their teachers, you understand that they earn the best, they go through the rigorous process. But here, we do the opposite. So the people that don't want to go into teaching, they wanted to study physics, and they didn't get into physics, then they throw them into physics education. Or they wanted to study biz admin, they didn't get into biz admin, they throw them into education admin. And, these are not the people that we should be having in our system. So if the structure is wrong, then we would always have, poor teachers in the system, and everything goes wrong from there. So it is really, really sad that you see that you're talking to NCE teachers and you're better off. So my local schools, for instance, have refused to employ NCE teachers because SSE speak better English than NCE teachers. So when the Office of Quality Assurance comes and says, oh, before you have a school, you need to have at least NCE teachers, and they're like, excuse me, it's not about having NCE teachers just to tick a box to say I have NCE teachers. What if all the NCE teachers I've interviewed cannot speak English? In fact, it is so horrible. I've sat in some of those interviews. It is so horrible. And then they'll come and be asking, I'm an NCE teacher, I deserve this kind of salary. And an SSE comes and demonstrates, something better than our NCE teachers. So it's just the system itself doesn't work. So we need to address it from that. The quality of teachers that we have, it's important that we are able to start from there, ensure that the institutions bringing out the teachers is bringing out the kind of quality that will help our children do better.
Definitely. Thank you, Larry. Adeto Ayo Adiola asks, please, can we have a section where we can see these books and some of us can order? Dear panelists, please, in the chat box, can you share your handles on social media so that the participants can get through to you? They're interested in your books. Yes. Rhoda Farinde asks, how do we help reduce the number of out-of-school children? I think we've talked about it a bit. Razak, do you want to add something to that quickly? 1 minute. How do we help reduce the number of out-of-school children?
I think it's pretty easy. I've said it earlier. Looking around for marginalized children, they are all around. But one thing is, if you have 30% of your out-of-school children, which is over 3 to 4 million, to be children with disability, the first is, can all schools start thinking of mainstreaming rather than having special school for people with disability? The word special is not what we want. It's a word of inclusion. There is no special university, neither is there special office for anyone to work. So if you are a regular school owner, start thinking of, can I have children, even if it is with 1 or 2 impairments, who can come into your school and fully learn? I think that might be one way we need to start thinking to reduce out-of-school children in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Razak. I think at this point we've answered largely most of the questions that have come in. Okay, Mr. B, are we ready to talk through the poll results, or should I go ahead? Okay. Please, everyone, look at your screen. We're scrolling the results of the polls. 52% of us say they are more comfortable reading paperbacks. 65% of us say they learn better using audio visuals. 87% of us think that materials for advocacy and other things should be in other formats, adaptable for people with disability, definitely. 39% of us are not sure about government reopening schools in September. 30% of us think it is safe, and 30% of us think it is not safe. That's an interesting breakdown. As a parent and guardian, 52% feel that they will let their children return to school in September. Interesting. Mr. B, do you want to say something quickly about the polls, especially about September resumption?
Sorry, come again.
Do you want to say something about the polls resumption, especially in September, where we had an interesting breakdown of 40, 30, 30?
Yeah, basically it's just to feel the pulse of everyone, to look at how we're, there's been differing opinion with regards how people want to have their children return to school or not to return to school. So I guess this actually says it all. People are still trying to play safe. People are trying to see how they can actually, still stay home and learn from home. Others are actually, they want to be able to concentrate at their workplace, considering the fact that school is not just only school for so many families. School is a place of protection and safety as well. People want to have their children return to school so that they can concentrate at work. So I expected something like this, and I feel like, the days to come will basically shape how things will go eventually.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. B. Okay, to all my panelists, I'm taking one final question. I will use that as your closing remark. Dapo, what is your advice for overcoming existing literacy gaps? 1 minute, please. You're muted, Dapo, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. People have mentioned, like the lady who spoke just now, to talk about the quality of teachers. I think many people have spoken about that. I think if we can employ people who are teachers because they actually want to be teachers, not because there's nothing else to do. People who are passionate about teaching. In class, as they're teaching, the child would definitely find the subject more interesting. They'll find reading more interesting. And when somebody finds something interesting, you don't need to force them to do it. I think that's a place to start. Because without the right teachers, I don't really know where we're going to start, to be honest.
Thank you, Dapo. Larry, how do we walk through existing literacy gaps? How do we overcome them?
You called me, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, I think it has to be different strategies. I happen to have stumbled last year on an agency of government called Agency of Mass Education, which is also addressing adult literacy, and you'll also be shocked about the illiteracy level among adults in Nigeria. So it's adult literacy, covering literacy for children. We need to come up with a more structured approach for ensuring that literacy is, something that is general for everyone. I happened to work with that agency for a while, and I saw the transformative impact it had on even adults to be literate, to be able to read and write, and the impact it had, even little financial literacy on market women, and the impact it had on their lives and on their children, because they were able to understand how important education is for their kids. If it could transform their own lives, how important it would be for their children to be literate. So in addressing the gaps for children as well, we need to ensure that we're giving them all that they need to be able to be literate. It's not just about getting them into school, but ensuring that they're learning and they understand how, education will be a game changer for them. So that's my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry. Razak, how can we address existing literacy gaps? You're muted, Razak.
Okay, I think I've unmuted myself. The best for me is if we need to bridge that gap, how do we make education accessible and affordable yet the quality is not misplaced? I mean, we don't misprioritize it. So if we need to do that, I think it's important. It's high time for education institutions to start thinking of social enterprise school or social enterprise education institution that does not give schools the sole right to start depending on tuition fee as the only source of survival. Once we can start thinking of that kind of model within our school institution, then it reduces the cost of education for children, regardless of their status, ethnicity, or disability. And with that, we can increase the literacy gap we have in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Razak. Omagushe, please round up for us. Omagushe?
I would just quote John C. Yeah, I would just quote John C. Maxwell, the American leadership author, and he says, everything rises and falls on leadership. Yes. And at the end of the day, if we do not work very hard to look for, to groom, and to support political leaders, social leaders, religious leaders, and leaders in business and enterprise who understand the imperative of education beyond lip service and are ready to put their money where their mouth is. If we do not organize ourselves to find such people and give them the support that they need so that they will lead us away from our crisis, then we will not make all our intellectualism, all our thoughts, all our great ideas, unfortunately, will die at the altar of political will, or indeed the lack of political will. So for me, that is the most important lever of change, fulcrum of change in our society across all facets of life, including literacy and education.
Very, 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 very profound. Thank you, Bisha. Thank you very much. Mr. B, are we ready for our group photograph at this point? Or should I round up?
All right. I will need everyone to come on camera and put up a very good smile. Your camera is off. You need to turn it on and put on a very good smile. And let's have our memories about this to be complete. So 3, Omagushe, are you there? 3, 2,
yes, I am.
1, go.
Okay, thank you, Mr. B.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On my end, I want to appreciate the panelists. You guys have thrown a lot of light onto the discussions today. And I will just be closing with 2 quotes, one from the UN lead, Antonio Guterres, who said, "I firmly believe that education and digital technology are 2 of the most important investments we can make as we respond to COVID-19 and lay the foundations for a strong recovery and the achievement of the global goals." The UN Messenger of Peace and Nobel Prize winner Malala Yousafzai says, "With guns, you can kill terrorists. With education, you can kill terrorism." It's been my pleasure moderating this session this evening. Again, my name is Abosede Polobamasho, and it has been lovely meeting all of you. I will hand us over to our host, Granny Murray, and say thank you very much. Good evening.
All right. Thank you so much, Abosede. It's been a very awesome evening with everyone. And ladies and gentlemen, I must really thank you all for making time out to be part of this webinar this evening. It's most appreciated, and I believe that we have all learned from it. You know, I've learned a lot from everyone who is an author in this on this panel today. I've even learned some very big grammars as well, of which, really didn't stay in my mind until now, something like exquisite manners, from Oladapo. It's quite educative, I must say. And we all see the reason why, as Nigerians, we need to solve Nigerian problems for Nigerians and by Nigerians. I believe that someday we will be able to, one way or the other, solve more problems, more Nigerian problems. I bet to a bit differ in a way. We may need to, at some point in time, begin to put some of our literature out of English and into our local languages, such that we can get, it's about literacy, and we need to get more people on board. The standard of education in Germany is not measured by how much of English they speak. Same with Finland and so many other countries. And because they actually learned in their local languages, it's actually helped them to actually go fast and be able to advance very quickly. So as a nation, I think we need to consider that seriously, but of course, that is a discussion for some other day. I want to thank our honorable moderator, Abosede, and I want to thank our inspiring panelists. I really appreciate your coming today, and I really want to thank our esteemed audience as well. You've all done well, and thank you for your questions that came forth. I've personally learned from your questions as well, and I'm sure same as every other person in the audience and the panel as well. Once again, for the fourth webinar, we have collaborated, we have cooperated, and we shall continue to coordinate this series. We look forward to seeing you again in October. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So at this time, thank you so much, Dapo. Thank you, Razak. Thank you, Omar Bashir. Thank you, Larry. And thanks, Abosede. And to our webinar admin, thank you so much for being there. My co-host, Josephine, thank you and thanks. So over to you, Josephine.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Toby. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's been an insightful evening for me. Much have been said by everyone, our honorable panelists, and the contributions from the audience as well, the participants. It's been awesome. And for me, I think this evening I've taken away so much. It's been inspiring, and there's so much to do. Obviously, to be able to achieve quality education, we cannot have a general blueprint for all situations. So we actually need to look at the real situation, what we need as a nation, as a people, as individuals, and be able to make the difference that we actually want to see. Thank you very much, Mr. Barrow. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Mr. Dapo, Bosse, Mr. Razak, everyone. Mr. Barrow, you talked about the political literacy. Now this is a huge one, and that's a takeaway for me. We need to identify why we're trying to groom our future leaders. While we're trying to groom our future leaders, we actually need to identify those. We still have very good individuals that can actually take us forward in this country, and we need to identify and support those individuals so that we can make a headway as a people. Thank you, Mr. Barrow. Thank you for that. So on that note, I thank you all and hope to see you soon next month for Series 5. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks for everything.
And well done.
Thank you. God bless you, Bosse. Thank you, Josephine. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Namaste. All right, I'll wait to see everyone go. Thank you so much.
Farewell.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.